Good morning! Welcome to another episode of Papa's Workshop. These are for Adam, Brady, Luke, and Brenna. Before we get started with this session, let's check in with my assistant. There she is, the guard dog that she is, ready to get to work, aren't you, girl? That's not a treat. Yes, you had yours already. You had yours already. And Molly had a birthday this week. She's officially 10 years old. You ready to get to work? All right, let's go. Right. Today, or this session, we're going to finish up the lower three drawers, which means we have to finish up the drawer fronts before we can glue the drawers up. So first thing we need to do is put the lock hardware in. And what's critical is this little pin right there. That's where the key goes, the center of the key. And that's a set distance from there to there. So I took the little square and set it so that it's to the center of that pin, marked it on the drawer front, and then I drilled this 1/8 inch hole, which is the same size as that pin. So what that allows me to do is on the back side, because that lock's going to go on the back side, is I can put that pin in the hole. And you see that the lock is not, the hole is to one side, it's not centered. So I can use this and then mark the edges here, and because I need to put a mortise on the top of this that's the thickness of this, right? So we're gonna mark that and make that mortise, and then we'll have to mark this gray part. That's about 3/8 deep. So we need to mark that square, cut that down, then we'll mark the outside of the thing. So we got 3 stages to get to that point. So let me go ahead and mark this, and then we'll cut that out. Okay, we got the edges marked, and then we'll just take a square and work that out further. Now we got the 2 edges defined, and then I set the marking gauge for the depth of the width of the top. So we'll just take, and that'll make our line across here. So then we just define those edges with the chisel. Let's see, that one should be. The chisel just falls right into the knife edge. That's why you want to use a knife instead of a pencil. So anyway, I got to define that, and then I'll take it down a little bit with the chisel, and then we'll use a small router plane. See, it's got a blade. It sticks up just the thickness of this metal plate, and we use that to come in. Actually, I can score a line on this side to give me a control. So we'll get most of it out with the chisel, and then we'll finish it all to the same height with that. So We'll do that with a speed up here. All right, we got that that cut. See there? And so now we should be able to just from the back just start to see, it just starts to go in, but we've got that steel box to go in. Well, the other thing is you want to make sure you got the bolt extended, because once we get this down in there, it's pretty hard to get out again without something to grab a hold of. So, and the other thing I did was I numbered these. These are sort of handmade. I mean, they're using machines, but they're not a mass-produced item, and there are sometimes differences. These all were pretty much the same, but you do kind of want to match them. I've got, this is number 2 drawer front, and I got a number 2 on this, so this one's going to be, I'm going to fit this mortises to fit this lock, and it may not fit one of the other ones. So, you know, when you're using reproduction hardware, that's a good rule of thumb. So, the next thing is we got to cut that in the back, and I made a cardboard cutout that's the same as that block, and it's got the hole in it. So I used just an 1/8 inch drill and set that there, get it even on the top, and then we're not too. This is not critical at all. It's going to be hidden underneath there, so we just have to mark the box. And it's going to be 3/8 of an inch deep. So I got another router plane. This is the full-size one, and it's set the depth from the face to the point as the thickness of the lock, of that silver part of the lock, the steel part. So I can score a line down here. That'll be the depth. And then I'll just take the saw, make a starting cut, and then this is going to be cross cut, so I'm using the cross cut saw. And going down to my line I just scribed, and then I should clamp this down, but there we go. And this will give me the starting point for this box, mortise. So I'm going to remove most of the waste in here using a Forstner bit, which is a flat bottom bit on the drill press, and get most of that out and down to the level that I want. All right, so you see we got that all almost down to the right level, and so now I just have to chop that all out and make sure the lock fits. We got that all cut out. Let's see if the lock fits. So I think it goes right in the hole there. See, so now we're flush, and then we can mark this back area with a knife. And you notice I put two boards underneath there. That's to reduce the bounce when I'm chopping that. So this same deal, we need to do a mortise for this plate. To the depth of the, see, this is where you need that lock to be able to pull that back out of there. So we use this small router plane again and get that area down to this level, and then we'll be ready to make the keyhole bigger. But that's so we're going to do the same thing. Just chop that out. All right, we got it all cut, and one other thing I did on there was this corner. I just took a chisel and just cut that little chamfer on there, because the lock, that has a bent piece there, so there is a little bit of a radius at the bottom. So now this should fit. There we go. See, so now it's nice and flush. So we're good to go. The next thing we need to do is make that hole bigger for the key. I had a key laying around here. Oh, I have. All right, so we got our key. So it's got to go through this keyhole. So we want that all to be dark inside of that. So we're going to make the hole, at least at the front edge, the same as this little deal here. So we're going to enlarge that hole to the size of this circle, which is just slightly over 1/4 inch. So we'll drill that all the way through, and then use a dowel to center this, and then mark these plates for the key, for the locks, are held on with 2 small nails. So we mark those nail holes. The top drawer is a little different. It's got, we'll have to talk about that later, but it's got the 2 bigger holes because it's going to have the pulls or the handles that go on there. And there's 2 of these, but there's only one of them that has a lock. The other one's just a false front. So we'll talk about that when we get to there. So anyway, so we're going to drill that hole, mark this, then we got to mark this downward part and chop that out a little bit, enough for the key to get through there. And then we'll test fit, make sure the keys work on the locks well, and then we'll be ready to cut the backs of the front out. All right, we got the hole drilled. So now we need to take our piece here, and I'm going to mark on the back of it too, because these are, like I said, more or less handmade. And we're going to take the drill bit that I drilled the hole with, since it's an odd size hole. Put that in, and then, one other thing I want to do first. I measured kind of the distance on the first one I did, so I'm going to strike a line here with the marking gauge to help me get it rotated this way, right? So we'll put that in, and what did I do with the drill bit? There we are. So put the drill bit in, so now I can line that up and take a small pencil here. Mark the nail holes. Make sure that one goes all the way through. And then mark the keyhole. I got it. So I'm going to take a punch and get a start for those nail holes. And so now we're going to drill two more holes. One, see this little curved piece here? We'll drill a hole that size right there, and then one in the middle, so we can chop chop out that section. So I've got one already at that point. See, so we have our 3 holes. So we'll chop that waste out, just make a straight line, and just that'll come out pretty easy. We're going to go from both sides so we don't get a blowout. And then we'll take a chisel on those lines that were marked and make that all the way through. So. Got that chopped out. So now we need to test fit, put the lock in, and make sure that the key can line up all right. Yeah, so we got it, and it's got plenty of room, so we are good to go there. And then we got to make sure that our plate kind of lines up everywhere. Looks good. So we just need to do that on the other drawers. Then we'll be ready to cut out the backs on these bottom 3. The top one, like I said, that's a little different animal. The top one, we're going to have the 3 shell carvings. This one is concave. It's going to be, we're going to carve that into this board. These 2 outside ones are applied. They're going to be carved on a separate board and then glued on because they're convex. They come out. So our 2 plates, our 2 keyhole plates need to fit up there. There's 2 of them, and they both have handles with them, so it serves a dual function. It's the handles or the pulls and the locks. And I put the lock on this side. This other one won't have a lock, and since the lock is mostly, it was shifted, so I shifted it so that it's on the outside, away from this where this is going to be carved. It looks like on the original they glued a piece on the back, but the lock's kind of in the way, so I'm not really sure what to do. Maybe we'll glue a fan-shaped piece on there to strengthen that, because it's going to go down. There's only going to be about 3/8 left at the bottom of this. Anyway, so we need to do the same thing here on this one, and then just a false one. I didn't drill all the way through on this, and we'll just do the same thing. We won't go all the way down. We just want it to be black so that it doesn't show that it's a fake key thing. So we've got to get all those done. Then we'll be ready to cut the backs of the fronts. All right, we got all the drawers. We got all the keyholes and the mortises all, the locks, mortises all done. So they're pretty much ready. So I went ahead and cut out the backs. All right, this part here. Cut those all out on all 3. So now the work the rest of the day is to get this all smoothed out. It doesn't have to match anything. They don't have to match each other. They don't even have to match left and right. It's on the inside. It's not that important. We just need to get it relatively smooth. Get the machine marks out of it. And then probably tomorrow we'll need to finish that, put the little dado for the drawer bottoms. We need to finish that in these new areas. The router table is still set up with the same thing, so we just run that through. And then there's still one more thing that has to be done before we glue up these bottom drawers. Is the drawer stops. that we want these fronts to be exactly 1/8 of an inch in from the beads. We want the beads to be proud by that 1/8 inch. So we want the drawer to consistently stop at that point. And if you put stops at the back of the cabinet, then as the seasons change and the case gets deeper and shallower in the winter, that position up front would change, because the drawers, the wood grains going front to back, it's not going to change as much as the case is. It's got the grain going up and down. So what we do is we put stops on the case that hits the bottom of the drawer fronts. The bottom panel is going to be slightly less than 1/2 inch thick, and the top of this slot is 5/8 up. So we've got an 1/8 of an inch gap there. So we're going to glue some 1/8 inch strips on the case here and here for each drawer, so that when they slide in, they'll hit that, and that's where they'll stop, and it'll be consistent no matter what the humidity level is. So we've got to have this all done before we can do that. And it's easier to set these in as a single piece and mark it and then test fit than it is having to slide the whole drawer in. So that's why we're going to do that before we glue up. And then once we get that much done, then we have to sand everything on the inside of the drawer to 220 grit, because it's harder to sand on the inside once it's glued up. The outside we'll have to sand anyway to clean up the dovetails, but that's the plan. So the rest of the day is to get these all smoothed out. All right, well, I got the backs all smoothed out, and I went ahead and on the router table, setting these flat with a slot cutter, and finished that cut on the for the drawer bottom there. So now I need to put in the stops, the drawer stops we talked about. So what I'm going to do is just set this in there, and we want it to be an 1/8 of an inch back. So I got this little piece that's 1/8 inch, and I'm just going to set that on both corners. Push that back. Looks good. And then from the back, I'll take a pencil and draw that line in the back. Okay. So now we got a line there, and I got these scraps left over from another project, and so we're just going to glue those like that on these places. I already marked the top ones. So we just need to glue those. I'm going to make them a little proud. I'm basically going to just cover the line, and then I can always go back with a plane and shave those down closer. But at this point, that's all we're going to do. So just a matter of gluing those, and let's see, I think those clamps, I think I can just clamp them like this from the inside. Yeah, I'll just clamp them like that from the inside. If you can see that. I just clamp them like that. I have to do one row at a time, but anyway. So I'm going to do that, and then it's just a matter of final sanding on the drawer parts before we glue. All right, we got the backs all cleaned up, and I got it all sanded. The insides of the drawers are all sanded to 220 grit. We got our drawer slot in there. I did one thing. It's not on the original, but I put a decorative edge on the tops of the sides of the drawers and sanded the inside and put some chamfers on the bottom so they don't have some sharp edges. So we're ready to glue. Nothing fancy about it except that we don't have a bottom. Molly, you had your turn. So we don't have a bottom to keep it square, so that's the only thing is when we get it glued up, we have to make sure it's square, measure corner to corner, and that's the only tricky part. And of course, the dovetails are tight to begin with, and then with the glue, we got to work fast. They don't lock up on us. We got all three drawers, bottom drawers, glued up, and they're sitting in the case. It looks all pretty good. So we are getting there. Everything looks pretty good so far. So next session we'll start on the top drawer with the shell carvings. So that's going to take a little bit of work. I think I'm going to do a practice one on basswood, which is softwood. Easy to carve. I'm going to make a practice one. The shells over here, you can see the drawing there. I've pretty well got it figured out how to draw them at any size. Again, it's all divided by fives, and there's multiples of that. But what I can't really tell for sure from the pictures is the three-dimensional part of it, how deep and how much rise on the convex one, how much that moves. You know, the two-dimensional pictures, they don't really get the depth of it very well. So I'm going to do a practice one, and probably one of each, concave and convex, and get a feel for how much curve there is in that. So that's next session.